From the Chase Trifecta to American Express, you've probably seen these cards talked about everywhere, but you might be leaving thousands of dollars on the table by not considering these 8 cards. The first of which is from a bank that you probably don't hear credit cards from much, but actually have a few very powerful ones that in some areas match higher end cards like the American Express Gold card for little to no cost. And so the first card here would be the US Bank Altitude Go card, commonly referred to as the Amex Gold Killer. This card really packs a punch in terms of the return on spend that you get, offering 4 times back for dining, takeout, and restaurant delivery, while getting 2 times back at grocery stores, grocery delivery, streaming services, gas stations, and EV charging, along with 1 times back on everything else. That means you're getting the same 4 times back on dining purchases similar to the Gold, while getting a lower 2 times back on groceries, but tacking on streaming, gas stations, and EV charging, and all with no annual fees. While at the same time getting a 20,000 point bonus after spending just $1,000 in the first 90 days of the card. Now, although you'll be earning Altitude Go points here, you can convert those points at 1 cent per point through options like cashback or gift cards with a minimum of 2,500 points or $25, or travel and merchandise at a minimum of 1,000 points or $10. Unfortunately, unlike some other ecosystems like Chase and American Express, even though there are more powerful cards here, like the US Bank Altitude Reserve card, where you can redeem points at an elevated 1.5 cents per point when booking travel through their portal, you can't pool points together and boost the value of the points you're earning from the Altitude Go card. Maybe that'll change in the future, but I think that's a major area of improvement. That said, the Altitude Go card itself still has a couple of tricks up its sleeves. First of all, you'll get a 0% intro APR on purchases and balance transfers for the first 12 billing cycles, and second, an annual $15 credit given at the end of every 12-month period towards streaming services, including popular ones like Apple Music, Disney+, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, and many more. So a no annual fee card, amazing multipliers across common categories like dining, groceries, and gas, and streaming credit makes for a very powerful card, especially for those that like a 1 card setup. But speaking of a 1 card setup, this next card really takes it up a notch. If you're familiar with the Freedom cards, then you'll know that the Flex has 5% cashback on different categories every quarter, and the Unlimited gives you 1.5% back on all of your spend, which is what makes the 2 cards such a powerful combo. Now, if you took those 2 cards, squash them together, and supercharge them, that's where you get the US Bank Shopper Cash Rewards card, which, looking at the colors, really seems like a mashup of the 2 Freedom cards. And you can tell right away from looking at the cashback you get for the various categories, starting with getting 6% back when you spend up to $1,500 every quarter on 2 retailers of your own choosing. Similar to the Freedom Flex, you do have to enroll in this every quarter, but you do get the freedom to choose which categories you want to use this on. Taking a look at the list, there are some pretty niche ones on here, but with big names like Amazon, IKEA, Nordstrom, and some other retailers like Target and Walmart, there's enough selection here to cover a wide variety of potential purchases. Heck, this even beats out the 5% return you get on the Amazon Prime card, and that requires you to have an Amazon Prime subscription itself, as well as beating out some other retailers' own cards too, as they lay out here on their website. Then on top of the 6% categories, you'll also earn 3% back up to a separate $1,500 every quarter on 1 everyday category, including wholesale clubs like Costco or Sam's Club, gas and EV charging, bills, and utilities, as well as an overall 1.5% cash back on all of your spend over those limits or in categories that are not covered. And even though this card is not a travel-centric card, you're still getting an elevated 5.5% cash back when booking prepaid hotels and car rentals through their reward center. This is 0.5% higher than the Freedom cards, but will not include travel categories like flights, which is a significant one. Now, to get all of the above, there is usually a $95 a year annual fee, but for the first year, that goes down to $0. It's essentially free to try and reap the benefits of all these elevated categories in the first year. That said, there is a $250 bonus after spending $2,000 in the first 120 days, days, but in my opinion, it's not the strongest welcome bonus out there. The card also lights up the logo during contactless transactions, which is a cool touch and one I haven't really seen on other cards. So I'd say this card is pretty amazing for those who want a slim one card setup that really does it all, especially if you can see yourself spending a lot on those different categories and enough to justify the $95 annual fee from year 2 onward. But again, given there's no annual fee in the first year, it's a lot lower of a risk to try it out. That said, third, we have another card that has some great cashback among some common categories, but with a significantly higher spending limit. You'll also be able to supercharge all of those rates depending on how much you have with this bank. So say a 3% cashback rate can be supercharged up to 5.25%, all with no annual fees. And so you can really customize your experience with the Bank of America customized cash card. Because first of all, you'll get a 3% cashback in a category of your choice, along with 2% at grocery stores and wholesale clubs, where you'll get these rates up to a combined $2,500 of spend every quarter, with 1% back on everything else. And those 3% categories include options like gas, online shopping, dining, travel, drugstores, or home improvement stores, and you'll be able to change those categories once a month. But all of those categories can be raised just by having money with a bank, from a minimum of $20,000 for the gold tier up to over $1 million for their diamond tier. And no, it doesn't mean that you have to have that much money in a checking or savings account. It includes investment balances as well, which means at the lower end, your 3% can jump to 3.75, and on the higher end can jump to 5.25%, and similarly across the other earning rates too. Now, I'm not sure if I would transfer all of my assets to Bank of America just to get these higher rates, but maybe it's worth it for you, or you're already transferring your assets over to Bank of America given the collapse of some regional banks like Silicon Valley Bank. Then of course you'll get a welcome bonus with this card too, where you'll get $200 in rewards after spending just $1,000 in the first 90 days, as well as an 18 billing cycle 0% intro APR for purchases and transfers within the first 60 days, which is a lot longer than some of the other cards we've talked about today. Now, speaking of customizing, this next card will actually let you choose 2 categories that you can earn a higher 5% back up to $2,000 every quarter, but with a very different set of categories, and that would be with the US Bank Cash Plus card, where for your 2 categories, you'll be choosing from a selection that includes fast food to utilities, electronic stores, furniture stores, and a few others. On top of that, you'll be getting 2% cash back with no spending limit on grocery stores, restaurants, and gas and EV charging, with 1% back on everything else. Similar to the other US Bank cards, you'll also get a welcome bonus here of $200 after $1,000 of spend, but over the first 120 days of opening, as well as a 15 billing cycle 0% intro APR offer. Overall, it seems like US Bank is pretty underrated, especially with its arsenal of rewards cards that provides so much value and customization for little to no annual fees, and can be great pickups for your main spender or to fill in gaps that some other cards don't cover, like gas, electronic stores, or grocery stores. But maybe you don't have a car and you don't like to cook, or maybe you're the type that wants it more simple and not have to track how much you've been spending in different categories and then swapping out to a different card to make sure you're maximizing the value for your spend. In that case, the Capital One Saver One might be up your alley, especially with its one big benefit that it provides. But first, the card is really straightforward to use with no spending caps, giving you 3% back across dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and grocery stores, with 1% back on everything else, again with no limits. You'll also get 5% back when you're booking hotels and car rentals through the portal, similar to the US Bank Shopper Cash card, as well as an 8% back for Capital One entertainment purchases, with none of your spend incurring foreign transaction fees when used abroad. Stack on top of that a welcome offer of $200 after just $500 of spend in the first 3 months, and you have a really well-rounded card that's free to keep open year after year. But the one major perk that this card has that I think is amazing is getting 10% back on Uber and Uber Eats purchases, as well as getting Uber One membership throughout November of 2024, which can easily be worth $120 itself. If you don't own a car car or you don't like to cook much and you use Uber Eats a lot, this can save you a ton of money. Did I mention it has no annual fees? Alright, so switching themes for card number 6. We've talked a lot about some common categories like grocery stores, gas, and dining, but what about one of, if not the largest spend category of the typical American? At over $1,800 a month in average rent, that's a ton of spend that doesn't usually earn any points. Until the more recent introduction of the Built MasterCard. Essentially, this powerful card will earn you 3 times on dining, 2 times on travel, and 1 times on all other spend, including rent payments without the transaction fee. And that is huge. Given the average of $1,800 a month in rent, that's 21,600 points that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And not only would you be able to use those points towards future rent or even a down payment, you can transfer them to one of their amazing travel partners at favorable rates, namely Aeroplan, Virgin Atlantic, and World of Hyatt, where you can, without that much extra work, get more than 2 cents per point on average, doubling the return you get for the spend on the card. They've also partnered up with Point.me, which is usually $129 a year, that will help you find award availability throughout all of their partners to ensure you're getting some amazing redemptions for your points, which can be really helpful in showing you what's available even if you're not using your Built points, because then you can just transfer points from elsewhere like Chase or American Express. Now, a word of caution here, this card is quite new and there has been some recent issues where some users were getting hit with fraud charges due to BIN attacks where they attempt to brute force your credit card number combinations, but I believe Built, along with Wells Fargo, has had that situation under control. Users weren't responsible for those charges, and that method of attack usually affects credit cards in general too. Though I personally still plan on getting this card sometime in the future, especially when consumer protections on credit cards are usually pretty strong. But the choice is there. Alright, so for card number 7, you've probably heard of the American Express Platinum card, which comes with a ton of different perks and benefits that can really make or break the card depending on how many you can use. But what if I told you, despite all those perks already, you can get all these benefits on the card for free and put a few $100s back into your bank accounts? Well, that's where the Charles Schwab version of the American Express Platinum card comes in. This card is essentially a copy of the regular Platinum card that you can learn more about up in the corner, offering hundreds upon hundreds of dollars in perks, as well as amazing travel and shopping protections, on top of statuses like Marriott and Hilton Gold or Hertz President Circle. But instead of getting just 0.6 cents per point when redeeming for cashback, which will put the 100,000 point welcome bonus at just $600, you'll have the option to redeem these points at almost double, at 1.1 cent per point towards your Schwab accounts, which is essentially cashback, which will pin your 100,000 point welcome bonus at $1,100 in value, which is more than enough to cover the $695 annual fee and put over $400 back into your account. And depending on the amount of money you have with Schwab, you can get anywhere from $100 to $200 off the annual fee, further making this card even more worth it. Honestly, I've had the regular version of the Amex Plat for 3-4 years now, and I've been able to justify the cost purely based on 3 or 4 of the perks and benefits, like the hotel credit, airline fee credit, Uber Cash, and Saks Fifth Avenue. That's already more than the annual fee every single year. So all of the other value of the card is just icing on the cake. And so now that we're talking about American Express, we gotta talk about one of their cards that offer a really high cashback rates on some common categories, while offering you over $200 worth of credits that can save you a lot of money. And that would be with the American Express Blue Cash Preferred card. Because while spending with the card, you're getting a whopping 6% cash back on groceries up to $6,000 a year, 6% on select US streaming, 3% on transit, gas, and 1% back on everything else. And as with most of the other cards on the list today, you're also getting a welcome bonus. This time you're getting $250 $50 in welcome bonus after $3,000 of spend in their first 6 months, so almost double the time of the other cards. Now, similar to the US Bank Shopper Cash Card, this card also has a $0 intro annual fee for the first year, then going up to $95 on year 2 and onwards. But you can really help justify that annual fee in one of two ways. One is using some or all of the credits that come with the card, including a $7 a month credit or $84 a year towards the Disney bundle, which almost 5 million Americans have, or $10 a month equating to $120 a year in Equinox Plus credit if you enjoy using those programs to help you stay active at home. Meaning between the two cards, that's over $200 in potential value that you could be getting. 2, because this card has no annual fees in the first year, you can just focus all of your spend in those categories on this card, racking up all the cash back that you can. Then as you approach the second year, ask for a downgrade to a no annual fee card like the American Express Blue Cash Everyday card that has similar perks and benefits, if not better in some areas. Because with the Blue Cash Everyday, you're getting a lower 3% back on grocery store spend up to the same limit, but you'll also get 3% back on online retail, which is unique to this card. You'll also be keeping the $7 a month in Disney bundle credit, so you won't lose out anything there. And the Equinox Plus credit is replaced with $180 in Home Chef credit, which honestly could be more useful. So maybe you're looking for a unique card to cover a unique category, or you're just looking to expand your arsenal of cards. There are thousands upon thousands of dollars to be had among these 8 different cards. But if you don't already have a great core setup like the Chase Trifecta, then you'll want to hop on over to this video to see why you should be starting your journey there. I'll see you in the next one.